Very much, Dean. That was an unusual introduction. But like David, I am very honoured to be invited here tonight. But I confess that this is perhaps a bit of a cultural leap from Dumbarton to lofty Luss. So I approach tonight with a degree of trepidation. I've taken out all the rude jokes already. But I see you have taken precautions in advance of my arrival. Did you really need to have a complete ban on drinking before I came? Now, evidently the reputation of Dumbarton folk precedes us. But it is testimony to what can be achieved when we have cooperation between the Council and the Scottish Executive, and in particular, people like Billy Petrie and Ian McKirkin, who I see in the audience tonight, for their persistence. Mind you, it's only taken them something like 200 years to organise this, because after all, the very first recorded troublemaker in this area was indeed Robert Burns himself. As we've already heard from Ian, I understand that he got seriously bevied on Loch Lomond side. He enjoyed the company of women and all-night parties. It's not recorded whether he jumped off Luss Pier, but he did stop at Arica and he worked his way down the loch side before making it to Dumbarton, where we had the good sense to make him a free man of the borough. But can I thank David for his kind words and now apologise for what comes next? Because, I started off thinking that my speech should be entirely complimentary about men. An hour later, I hadn't written a word. I decided that in order to get beyond the first sentence, I would just tell the truth. That said, I do think women were truly appreciated by Robert Burns, that absolute epitome of the Scottish men. Indeed, in 1792, Burns wrote, "While Europe's eye is fixed on mighty things, the face of empires and the fall of kings, while quacks of state must each produce his plan, and even children lisp the rights of man. Amidst this mighty fuss, just let me mention, the rights of women merit some attention." Now, in many respects, we have come a long, long way in the 200 years since he penned those words. In this generation, we've seen women become presidents, state leaders, and yes, even prime ministers. And I happened to spot her autobiography in the true crime section of Waterstones. I guess we even have members of the Scottish Parliament. Almost 50% of our MSPs are female, and I'm sure Burns somehow would have liked that. So yes, it's a new politics, a new Scotland, a new way of doing things. Oh boy, were we so wrong. All it took was the predominantly male press just to bring us back down to earth. Now, I know in Luss you won't get copies of the Edinburgh Evening News. Count yourselves lucky. Because you would pull out, on the day we debated land reform, it was all too difficult for them to think about, you would pull out a style file. What were the women MSPs wearing today? Did they have sufficient makeup on? Because makeup makes you look powerful, apparently. What we didn't see was an article about the male MSP sartorial elegance. Although I have to say, a little bit of lippy probably wouldn't go amiss. But women have contributed over the years. Since the 18th century, we've had people like Florence Nightingale bringing professionalism to nursing, Marie Curie and her advances in the medical field, Amelia Earhart, Mary Somerville, that great mathematician and astronomer. These and many others showed what the snow and you chop the wood, you're handy, you're dandy, bless your hearts, you're just plain good. Now, before we rise to sing women's kind's many praises, pray remember, deeds work harder than pretty phrases. Rapid attention to football scores delays action on household chores. It is not unmanly with children to speak or clear their little accidents whenever they leak. There is more at home to give you joy than any tavern or stadium could employ. Yet should he find himself at a loss, he'll do well to remember, the woman's the boss. So let these words of praise resound, a man's a man, and fine to have around.